You are listening to Let's Talk Trio on podcasts. Keep up with the latest episodes by downloading the Podbean app or stream episodes via our social media accounts. Search for Let's Talk Trio on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. This podcast episode is brought to you by Longsdale Publishing. Is your program seeking ways to assess your students' college readiness? Does your program need a tool to document the effectiveness of your program? Longsdale Publishing is excited to offer the Strategic Learning Assessment, a 20-minute online assessment that provides recommendations and strategies to improve academic performance across 11 learning areas: communication, critical thinking, effective learning strategies, focus and concentration, growth mindset, persistence, seeking help, sense of belonging, stress management, test preparation, and time management. For as little as $3 per student, the Strategic Learning Assessment identifies strengths and areas for growth, along with tailored recommendations for each learning area. Want a complimentary sample account for yourself and 5 students? Contact Longsdale Publishing at 727-389-8026. Again, that number is 727-389-8026. Or visit our website for more information at www.longsdale.com. That website again is www.longsdale.com. Longsdale Publishing, your partner in student success. This episode is sponsored by Student Access. Student Access, the leader in Trio software. Student Access is an online database solution that allows Trio programs to track their students' information, connect with students by text messages, streamline the APR, and work from anywhere, all online, with automatic updates for changes from the Department of Education. Their technical support team includes former Trio staff and has over 50 years of combined experience working with Trio. Make it easier to focus on your priority, the students. For more information and to request a free demo, visit their website at www.studentaccess.com or call them toll-free at 1-800-801-1232. That website again is www.studentaccess.com or 1-800-801-1232. Be sure to share your favorite episodes on your social media by tapping that share button. This is a great way to support the podcast. Now here's your host, Juan Rivas.
Thank you, Amelia, for that wonderful introduction. Hello, listener, and welcome to this episode of Let's Talk Trio. This is Season 7, Episode 13. I am your host, Juan Rivas. Before we begin, some community announcements. Trio Nation, be sure to call your congressional representatives to defend the Trio programs. The Trump administration is seeking to eliminate the Trio programs in their most recent proposed budget. Take action now by spreading the word and contacting your congressional representatives. Let's defend Trio. In today's episode, we have Erik Austin, Director of the Trio Student Support Services Program at Westminster College in Pennsylvania. Erik is on the podcast to share his own life experience, educational journey, and how he discovered Trio. So coming up in just a bit, Erik Austin. A heartfelt thanks to our individual supporters, Angelica Villalpando, Rosario Riley, Dr. Ryan Barone, Dr. Jamie Motley, Dr. Jeff Naputi, Angelica Valdez, Felicia Rivera, Eric Lamaster, Jeff Calden, and Jaded Electronics. Thank you to our corporate sponsors, TrioJoblist.com, Nosotros Education Center, Longsdale Publishing, Student Access, and thetriostore.com. powered by Proforma. Visit www.thetriostore.com, your source for Trio graduation stoles. Thank you all so much for your continued support of this podcast. You too can be a sponsor of the podcast. Head on over to Patreon and search for Let's Talk Trio. Choose one of 4 patron levels. You can support this podcast for as little as $1 a month. If you own a business that serves the Trio community and want to sponsor the podcast, we have different sponsorship packages available. Contact us for details. Become a supporter with a one-time donation to the podcast business PayPal account. Our business handle is @Let'sTalkTrio. Your support helps lift Trio voices. If you would like to nominate a participant, staff, or alumni to be on the podcast, send us an email at letstalktrio@gmail.com. That email again is letstalktrio@gmail.com. Again, a great episode featuring Erik Austin, Director of the Trio Student Support Services Program at Westminster College in Pennsylvania. Sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode. Hi, Trio Nation. My guest on the Let's Talk Trio podcast is the director for the Trio Student Support Services Program at Westminster College in Pennsylvania. He earned his Bachelor of Arts in Broadcast Communication from the University of Pittsburgh at Bradford and a Master of Science in Communication from Purdue University. When he is not busy with work, my guest enjoys gardening, cooking, reading, and hanging out with his fiancée and their 2 Siamese cats. We are happy to welcome to this podcast, Erik Austin.
Thanks for having me, Juan, and hello, Trio Nation.
Thank you for giving us a bit of your time this evening and to talk about Trio and all the things Trio.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I could talk about Trio all day. I'm happy to have some time to discuss what's going on.
Wonderful. So how are you doing? How's everything for you?
Things are going well overall. It's a busy time for us here in our office. We just sent out our summer mailing for new students in the upcoming cohort. We've been working at it for less than a week, and we've already got 18 applications in, so we're very excited for that. And then, of course, we're waiting on the results of the SSS competition. We're feeling optimistic overall, but we're really doing well here. Thank you.
Fantastic. I know we're going to talk a little bit more about Trio specifically, but before we jump into that, I wanted to get a sense of what is something that you've learned so far in 2025?
Absolutely. Something that I have learned, or really that I'm still learning, is working on getting better to navigate the uncertainty that just kind of has been a staple of day-to-day life lately, and getting better at understanding what is uncontrollable, because there's some uncontrollability in our line of work. It's inevitable. And the better we are at being okay with that, the better we can respond to what that means. Absolutely.
Do you have any goals for 2025, or do you have any set goals for 2025?
A couple, actually. In addition to setting up a successful PA Trio conference as the immediate past president for the association, I'm actually in the end stages of applying for an EDD program so that I can further my education and be ready to do the work that's going to come next for education in general, but Trio programs in particular.
Wow, so a couple follow-up questions. So first, congratulations on that initializing the EDD program. The doctoral program is very, very intense. From what I've heard from other institutions, is that it can get pretty intense. But two, can you, for the audience, can you tell us what is the PA Trio Association? What is that?
Yeah, absolutely. So PA Trio is the Pennsylvania Association of Trio Programs. So it is our membership and advocacy association for all of the Trio programs in the state of Pennsylvania. I had the opportunity to serve as the president last year, and now I serve as the immediate past president. And among those responsibilities includes me planning the annual conference along with the president-elect. But I also had the opportunity and the privilege of having another one of my staff members here at Westminster follow me into the role. So as the president, as the prior president, I also have the current president 2 doors down from me. So it's been a really great opportunity to work together.
Absolutely. That mentorship is super important to keep that consistency across association presidencies. And it sounds like planning a conference is super, super intense. How do you balance your time between being a professional and also advocating for Trio in an association like that?
It can be difficult. And I mean, as we know, there are things that are allowable on the clock, things like advocacy, things like awareness, and making sure people know what we are, who we are, and the good work that we're doing. A lot of the other stuff that can't be done on the clock is after hours. It is
right.
it is still a job. It's something that we enjoy doing. It's something we find important and we make the time to do it. But there's definitely some late night emails with congressional reps
Wow.
to make sure they know what's going on. There's a lot of afternoon and evening calls trying to reach out to hotels or making sure that we're doing the other work behind the scenes. It's a balancing act, and there's a lot that goes into it. But I think as trio professionals, we've generally gotten pretty good at making sure that we're able to do that because we know that we wear a lot of hats. And
Mhm.
this is just a situation where there's one more hat that we have to make sure we're wearing properly.
Absolutely. We were talking about it in the podcast earlier that there's like a not controllable, uncontrollable, controllable aspect of the career, of the job, of the program itself, because they run on grants. Currently, Trio is in need of a ton of support from advocates to alumni. Can you share with the audience what is Trio currently facing and what can supporters do?
Sure. So there's a couple different threads to follow here. It will be as brief as I can, but there's a lot to
Sure thing.
unpack. In early May, the current administration released what's called their skinny budget for fiscal year 2026. So this is kind of an executive office wish list of the things that they want to see happen, but
Hmm.
there's not a lot of detail or a lot of planning behind it.
Hmm.
What was concerning about the skinny budget is that it called for a total elimination of a number of important programs, among them Trio and our cousin program Gear Up. And it really said some things that are unkind and untrue. It called the TRIO programs a relic. It said that college access is not the issue that it used to be for first generation students, low income students, and students with disabilities, and that the work that we're doing belongs in local hands. It belongs with parents and counselors and clergy and
Mm.
the folks who are in the immediate community. And they're an important part of this. We know that. But to say
Yeah,
that we
yeah.
are a relic or that there's no value to what we're doing, we know that's not true. So, so the fight has begun at that point in making sure that that zeroing of TRIO funding doesn't happen because any sort of budget like this from the executive branch is only a wish list.
Right.
It's not a mandate. It's not a requirement. Congress still has to pass a budget that then gets signed into law. And we know we have supporters in the House and the Senate. We have broad support across party lines in both chambers of the House. And if anyone happened to be watching the recent appropriations hearings, they said as much when the Secretary of Education was in those hearings. They made it pretty clear that TRIO is important and TRIO does fantastic work. I tend to agree with them, but
Absolutely.
it's made
Yeah.
it pretty clear that it's important we remind them of the work we're doing and to keep them on track for ensuring that we're getting the funding that we need to do the work that we're doing.
So,
So
yeah.
the funding battle is one half of kind of what we're tracking right now. The other half of that, as you know, there are multiple programs under the TRIO umbrella. And there's a subset of the Upward Bound programs that, rather than starting in September for their funding year, like most of us, they start their funding year on June 1st.
Hmm.
And the award notifications for those programs as we approach June 1st was not showing up. We hadn't seen anything. We hadn't heard from the department about that. And it was getting concerning because if the programs don't have funding, they can't operate. And for many of them, that
Hmm.
is not just a delay of a week or two, that is cancellation of planned summer events, that is services not being provided to students in a timely fashion or at all.
Hmm.
Those sorts of delays are not the kind of efficiency that we hear so much talk in the administration about. It doesn't make good sense to hold those notification letters back. So we've already seen a pretty massive advocacy effort across Trio Nation, folks working with the representatives and making sure that they're aware of the importance of getting these grant notifications on time. And we were successful. Just before June 1st, the Upward Bound programs, the June 1 start, did receive their notifications of funding, but not everybody. We did discover, unfortunately, that three Upward Bound programs were canceled, and the language that was used in the letters notifying them of this was a little bit suspect.
Hmm.
It was fairly vague. There was no clear cut definitions or delineations as to what they had done wrong. It was simply that they were not operating in the interests of the administration, and that there'd been some references thrown around that they could be violating the Civil Rights Act. There's a lot of confusion as to what they could be talking about because we're unaware of any circumstance that would be the case.
Right. Yeah.
So we had a victory. There's no doubt about that. That we got the awards through advocacy like we'd hoped to, but we didn't come out of it unscathed. And having one of those 3 programs in Pennsylvania, that's something that we feel pretty personally here.
Yeah.
And particularly because this was the first group of folks to get their funding letters, there is some fear across the TRIO community and from COE as well, that these 3 programs are the first round of folks that'll be canceled, but there could be more on the way as these funding notifications come out. It's uncertain. There's no way to know yet. And this is that uncertainty that we're kind of navigating right now. There's just no way to know. So we're preparing in advance of that. So to the question of what we need to do, this is the opportunity for anybody connected with a TRIO program, whether that be students, whether that be alumni, professionals, friends of TRIO. So many of the students that we work with have friends who are not TRIO, but still care deeply for their friends and the services they're receiving because it helps them to succeed. Anybody who has a connection with TRIO, this is the time to be reaching out to your elected officials and letting them know you're a supporter of the TRIO programs. It is important that these programs continue. It's important that they receive the funds they're supposed to receive. And it's important that they receive these funds in a timely fashion, because if we don't receive them on time or we don't receive enough notice, it makes it much more difficult to effectively operate. And students get hurt. Students lose services because we're not able to do what we're supposed to do in the way that we're supposed to do it. A couple days of delay has real world consequences, and that just can't be permitted to happen. So in addition to calling, writing, visiting your elected officials if you happen to have the opportunity. They're going to be home multiple times over the summer, and they have regularly scheduled recesses where they're back in their districts, or for senators, they're across the state. Spend some time, take some time to get out and see them at their local events and get some face-to-face time with them to let them know what's going on and what's important. But certainly social media and all the other mechanisms we have to reach out to folks are incredibly, incredibly important. And if you're looking for some guidance in exactly what to say or how to say it, COE's put some really great resources together. There's some form letters that you can tweak and modify, and they'll help you to send those to your correct elected officials. There are a number of different resources on their advocacy webpage on the COE website. And there's also an advocacy blueprint that many of us have been working off of this summer that talks about coordinating efforts and making sure that we have the biggest possible impact. But truly right now, it is a public relations war at this point. We are trying to make sure that Congress understands there are a lot of people who will be impacted. There are a lot of people who care about those people being impacted, and seeing those kinds of interruptions in service or folks getting hurt because of this action or this lack of action is just not acceptable. And it's not just those who are immediately impacted by TRIO. This is on all of us to be talking to our folks in our church, our folks in our communities, our civic organizations. Anybody who we talk to should know about TRIO. If we as professionals and students and staff care about the programs that we are part of in the way that I know that we do, we don't have any trouble telling people about the good things that we're doing and getting them to buy in and to care.
Absolutely.
So in a nutshell, that's where we're at.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor.
Are you seeking guidance to enhance your TRIO project's effectiveness and success? Look no further. Nosotros Education Center, NEC, is here to empower your TRIO project with expert consulting services. NEC's mission is to promote the effectiveness and impact of TRIO programs. Since 2003, NEC has specialized in providing professional development and in-service staff trainings, allowable cost services, for TRIO projects across the country. The team at NEC, with over 60 years of combined TRIO experience, offers customized workshops and seminars for project staff, compliance assessments, external evaluations, working on and submitting APRs, database customization and training, developments of policies and procedures manuals, and project implementation or reorganization services. Additionally, NEC has secured over $774 million in federal funding with a 92% success rate through their live and on-demand proposal workshops, assistance with data collection and review, detailed technical reviews, and comprehensive proposal development services. Join the hundreds of colleges, agencies, and TRIO projects across the country who benefited from NEC's expertise. Nosotros Education Center, your partner in TRIO's project success. Visit their website at nosotros.edu.org. Again, that's nosotrosedu.org.
And now, back to the podcast.
Erik, I can really tell that you're super passionate about the TRIO programs, even though you're not an alumni, you never participated, but you were a first generation student that really never got recruited by the TRIO programs. But I feel the passion that you really care about these TRIO programs. Like, let's set aside the fact that you work for a TRIO program, but you truly believe in its mission. You would definitely identify with this program so passionately.
I do, absolutely. And it's ironic. This is the second TRIO program I've ever worked in. The TRIO program where I got my start was at my alma mater. I had a TRIO SSS program in my backyard. They were in the same building I spent so much of my time, but I didn't understand what it was. I didn't take advantage of it. And I don't know that I call it a regret specifically. I made it through college. I did okay. I'm not mad about where I turned out, but I would have loved, looking back, to have been able to take advantage of the resources that were available to me, because I was the first in my family to go to college. I had supportive family at home, but they didn't know what they didn't know. They didn't know how to help me, because who that's not been to college knows how to handle a FAFSA? Without knowing what's going on, without having been through it, there's only so much help available. So for me, it is something I wish I'd had the opportunity to do back in the day, but it's also now a chance for me to give back to the students who remind me of where I was. So I'm very passionate about the work that we do, because I know it's such good work and I know how important it is.
Absolutely. In the weeks after the administration released its budget, a lot of TRIO folks within the TRIO community, whether they're alumni or staff, advocates, they really felt the pain of this budgetary release, and social media became a buzz with advocating and promoting TRIO. Alumni were talking about their experiences. People who work in TRIO started sharing why their programs are important, and even we were sharing highlights in social media about the committee hearings and how those were going. And pardon my kind of expression, it was really Congress going, do you even know anything? To the Department of Education going, like, do you know what your TRIO programs are doing? Can you talk about why these TRIO programs are still so important even after 60 plus years of existence?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the fact of the matter is, the need is still here. We are still here because the need hasn't gone away. And I mean, the students that we serve, they're talented, they're wonderful students, but they are still at a disadvantage compared to those who are not part of those TRIO served populations. A first generation student today still has difficulty accessing a college education. A student from a lower income family still has trouble financing a college education. Students with disabilities have a harder time taking advantage and making good use of the accommodations and support that's available, because the systems that exist are good. They're better now than they've been, but there's still a lot of work to be done, and that's where we come in. We've made a lot of progress in the 60 years that we've been around. There's no denying that, but the gap is still incredibly large. You look at the research, the top quartile, the highest income student population, has a 62% success rate of a college education. The lowest population, 15%. So that is a wide gap. And it's gotten better in 60 years. Think of how wide it was before, but it's still too wide. And until that gap is not there, there is still a need for us, because our entire mandate, what we're supposed to do, is not about giving students success on a silver platter. We've never been about that. Our job is to give everyone a fair shot to make their dreams reality. That is what we are supposed to do. We hear it all the time, not a handout, but a hand up. I think President Jones says that fairly often.
Yes.
It is our job to help them make their dreams real. And until all of them have accomplished that, we're not done. So we can't quit.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. I think what the Secretary of Education often misses, and I'm sorry, I'm taking a small tangent, is that there are students that fall through the cracks, right? That we love our public school counselors. They're awesome. They're amazing in the work that they do. They have heavy student caseloads. They're not going to get that one FaceTime with every single student. Heck, I remember my own counselor didn't have a lot of time for me to talk about college. And so Upward Bound for me was the kind of the stopgap. They were the ones that talked to me about college, right? And I feel like that's still relevant today that again, public schools are doing the best they can, but they're often so underfunded and counselors overwhelmed with the amount of students that they're serving that if we didn't have the trio programs, a lot more students would fall through the crack.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, we know that there's a shortage of school counselors, and especially in schools that have less to work with. They're doing more with less, and there's only so far that can go. Our existence is not an indictment of their ability or their talents. It's a statement on the fact that these students need more help than any one group of people can provide. We don't ever try to help one person one way. It's about building a safety net. So there are multiple points of contact to
Absolutely.
help maximize that opportunity for success. I would love to see more counselors and more well-equipped and well-staffed and well-funded counselors, because God knows they don't make enough money as it is. But
Hmm.
the reality of it is there will not be enough in these school systems to be able to offload all the work that we're doing. It is an and proposition, not an or proposition. That
Right.
we need both. Both sides of this need to be in these places to help these students.
Absolutely. We're arriving at the part of the podcast where I'd like to reflect on your journey growing into and how you came to be. Because again, you are a very passionate individual. I can already sense that education just really flows through you and you're very strong in it. Can we talk about your upbringing? What was that like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in a very rural town in northern Pennsylvania. It was a small place, more cows than people.
Oh,
And
wow.
I think there are two main streets and not a stoplight in town, nothing like that. So
Hmm.
very small. My high school experience, it was a group of 400 students, 7 through 12. So I graduated with a class of 64. It's that kind of a small area. And just about everybody in that area. I mean, you had some folks who worked agriculture, you had food service, retail. You had those sorts of jobs that were there, but almost everybody who was making a living or making their way, they worked for the local oil refinery. They worked for a
Hmm.
couple of the local manufacturing facilities, and a couple of them, if they got lucky, worked their way into the healthcare system. There were jobs to be had there, but looking back now, I realize that just because folks were making their way, it doesn't change the fact that it was a lower income area. There was a lot of poverty in that area, and there still is to this day. Now, I don't say that the experience I had there was the same as so many of the folks that we know that we serve that have crippling poverty, or they're coming from areas where their experience was very different. I was fortunate. We lived in an area where there was not a lot of industry going on, but my parents were both gainfully employed. We were never rich by any means, but we always had enough. And I know how fortunate that makes me. But I also know, looking at it from the other side, just how impoverished the area was. And a lot of that influences how I look at things today, because we know that one of the most important things you can do in terms of getting out of that situation, in terms of raising yourself up and making a life for yourself, is to, one, be wise with your money, to make smart financial decisions. And that was drilled into my head as early as I could possibly remember. And going out and getting an education, making a life for yourself. And it wasn't necessarily a college education. Sometimes it was go and learn a trade, or go and do something to better yourself.
Hmm.
But we know that education is one of those great equalizers. And that was something, looking back now, I understand the importance, because I don't know where I'd be today if it weren't for that commitment to education when I was growing up.
Can you talk a little bit about your family dynamic? What was that like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in kind of a blended, I don't know if that's the word for it, but it's the one I'm going to use, a
Yeah,
blended
yeah.
household. So my mom and my biological father divorced when I was young. I don't remember how young. But also, when I was very young, my mom remarried the man I call dad. So I was very fortunate in my childhood and growing up. I had mom, father, and dad, and it wasn't a there wasn't a prioritization. It was, these three people are in my life and supportive of me. I had the benefit of a great deal of support there. And even today, I'm still very close. I know for many people there are dynamics of dad and stepfather, and that was not the case for me. I had three very supportive parents that I love dearly. So I had a lot of support at home, and in addition to to mom, dad, and father, I also had a really, really great relationship with my grandparents on my mom's side.
Oh, that's
When I was
awesome.
young, we lived briefly with them, and I got to be very, very close with them, especially my grandfather, called him Grumpy. And thinking back to that, I would not be the person I am today if it weren't for that close relationship with him, because a lot of the morals and values that I have today come from the lessons that I learned from him. Also, a lot of the kind of goofy off the cuff sayings that sometimes come out of my mouth. I have people tell me, "You sound like you're 80 years old." Well, it's because growing up I had someone who was much older saying these things, and they kind of stuck with me. But that was a very, very important dynamic for me. But I was very lucky. I had a very supportive family back home.
You said earlier that folks would describe you as kind of like an old man. Can you tell us, like, how would your family describe you? What would they say about you?
So I have heard it said, and I don't remember exactly who said it, but one of them said you were born 80 years old. I was kind of a serious little kid growing up. I very vividly remember in my school photos, they never had to fight me to put on dress clothes. I think it's like a second or a third grade picture. There's me in slacks and a little button-down shirt and a little vest with a pocket watch. That was what I wanted to do, and I don't know for the life of me why, but that was
Wow.
that was who I was.
Wow.
Just very, very serious. That was who I gravitated towards being. But also, I mean, I was a bookworm. I always had a book of some sort with me. I love to read, still do. But that was who I was. I was old before my time, I guess would be the phrase for it.
Right on. Can you talk about your high school experience? What were some highlights for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was in high school, I again went to a very small school. I had my graduating class was 64 people, which meant that
Mm,
you got to know everybody really, really well. And I was on good terms with everybody, but I also, for the most part, kind of floated through the different social groups. I was not really super close with most people, even though I was on good terms with them. But I did have a really small group of people that I was very, very close with, and I got to be close with them through some of the different activities that we did. I was
mhm.
involved in the student government, so I had early on that desire to make a difference and to help people. I was the captain of our academic quiz team, so it was very, very nerdy, but also a lot of fun. Spent some time with the choir, did some different odds and ends sorts of things like that, but I never really found my passion when I was in high school. Student council was probably the closest thing to being that thing for me.
Mhm.
But I did. I had a few close friends. I was on pretty good terms with everybody, but it was a very different experience in high school than it was in college. I really, not to be cliche, I found who I was when I was in college.
That's very unique. Also, like a brand, like an overall experience for a lot of college students, right? Is that they really discover themselves and who they are
Mhm.
in college. In high school, it's kind of like an unraveling a little bit of like we're trying to figure out who we are, but we tend to follow the crowd. Or it feels like in your case, it was like you were already identified yourself as individually and you know what you wanted and what you liked. But college gave you that kind of platform to continue discovering about yourself. So speaking of college, at what point do you think about going to college? Because the reason I ask this is because for a variety of first generation students, typically it's like I don't even have a list of colleges, or it's like a last second thinking about college.
Yep, that was me.
Oh,
I
okay.
I would say if any high school students are listening, if you're thinking about your college experience, don't be like me. Start earlier. I really didn't start thinking it through until it became urgent, till it really started to matter during my senior year. And I did a little bit of looking around. At the time, I knew I was hell bent on being a lawyer. That's what I wanted to do with my life. That was what it
Mhm,
was going to be.
mhm.
So I started looking at colleges that had really strong either articulation programs with a well-known law school, or schools that were just known for their pre-law programs. And I picked out a handful. I was looking at Dickinson College, Duquesne University, Alfred
Oh wow.
University, and very briefly Tulane. And given that I lived in the area, the University of Pittsburgh's Bradford campus was right in my backyard, basically. So that was kind of my fallback school. If nothing else, I will be here and it'll be okay. I'll transfer later once I get where I'm going. Um, and it turned out that my grades were good, but they weren't Tulane good. They weren't Dickinson good. They weren't Duquesne good. I ended up on the wait list for Dickinson, and I didn't hear back from the others, but I was accepted to Pitt Bradford, and that's what took me to that place. And that's a whole other story.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
I applied. I do recommend for any students out there, always make sure that you have a safe school that you feel very, very strongly that you'll be able to get in. Don't be afraid to reach, but certainly have a plan B in place. But I mean, diversify. Don't lock yourself to just one or two schools.
I like that. Very good advice. Who did you trust to discuss college plans? Because like we were talking about earlier, sometimes the counselors get overwhelmed with the student requests and being able to meet with students. Did you have some folks that you trusted, or folks that were supportive of you wanting to go to college?
Absolutely. And certainly my family was supportive. They wanted to see me take that step. They wanted to see me do well for myself. But the process itself is not one they were familiar with. So there was very little they could do to help with that besides be the moral support or sometimes give me the nudge I needed to actually get the things done so I didn't procrastinate them. I did have some faculty or some teachers in high school that were really, really good about challenging me and about making sure that I was thinking critically about the decisions that I was making, thinking critically about don't skip the admissions essay just because it's optional. If you
Mhm,
want to get in, this is something they're going to look at, even though it says
mhm,
optional. Optional doesn't
mhm.
often actually mean optional.
Yeah.
So I definitely did have some really good high school instructors. We had a guidance counselor who was very, very good. I didn't spend a lot of time there because again, it was one instructor or it was one guidance counselor. And even though it was only a graduating class of 64, there's a lot of people to take care of.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
I was doing okay. So I kind of hung back. I spent study halls in the library and the librarian at the time when I was there was fantastic. She was a fantastic resource for that.
We talked a little bit about the colleges that made your list, but I want to kind of change the question a little bit if you don't mind.
Yeah.
What was it about the University of Pittsburgh at Bradford that really drew your attention? What was it about that school that made you go, this is not only going to be the school, but the safety school for me?
Hmm. And it really ended up being two separate decisions. The safety school conversation was this is a school that's close to home. This is a school that if I'm not able to get in anywhere else because it's a regional campus, the odds are good that I'll get in here. So
Hmm.
it was a safe, rational decision. And
Hmm.
my thought process had been if I don't get into another school that I like, I can go here, get some credits, boost and buffer my GPA, and then transfer out in a semester or a year. And then it was the option. So I went, and it very, very quickly became not I want to get out of here and go somewhere else, but I can't imagine being anywhere else. And it was a couple
Hmm.
things. It was certainly, I mean, a small campus. It's a campus kind of not too different from the one I work at now, relatively small. University of Pittsburgh degree, which is something that is prestigious and sought after, even at a regional campus, it is the same degree.
Hmm.
Um, but the people really made all the difference in the world. And I'll never the very first interaction I had with any sort of professional staff on that campus really changed my trajectory. So I'm gonna talk about that a little bit. My mentor all through college, her name was Christina,
Hmm.
and she was the director of student activities. She ran the orientation program, and the very first opportunity I had to interact with her was a raffle at the very beginning of orientation.
Oh.
I was running late. I ran through the doors, and there was like a door prize ticket.
Hmm.
And I, on the way in, dropped my ticket in, and I thought, "There's not very many in here. Maybe I'm actually not late." I get in there. No, room is packed. Everyone's already in there.
Oh wow.
Um,
Yeah.
Nobody did the simple thing. Nobody took the chance to try to do something. They didn't
Hmm.
drop something as simple as drop the door prize ticket in,
Uh-huh.
and they just walked on by. Didn't my ticket get pulled? Didn't I have the very first interaction with most of these people, first interaction with this person up on stage, walk away with this huge movie basket. So I was very popular
Oh
that
wow.
weekend. Um, but it really stuck with me, and it's a story I still tell to this day. The importance of taking the opportunity or taking the chance to get involved,
Hmm.
because I could have just as easily not put that ticket in. And if I hadn't done that, it's those little things that can make all the difference in the world. If I hadn't done that, I never would have been as close with Christina as a mentor. I never would have considered a career in student services. I never would
Mm,
have been here today. And just on and on, the number of choices that pivoted around that one decision that I made.
wow.
I'm not necessarily a believer in fate, but that is something that I can point to that everything would have been different without that.
Yeah. Talk about a like a butterfly effect that you really don't know about until you like it could be the smallest choice that leads up to these great things that are happening. So,
Oh,
wow,
absolutely.
that's amazing. So we're gonna fast forward a little bit to your high school graduation. Can you talk about this moment and what it meant to you and your family?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was again, I had the opportunity to go to a small school. It was a very rural area, but it was also the school that I mean, my parents had graduated from there. My grandparents graduated from the school that was its predecessor a couple miles down the road.
Mhm.
But I had family that worked there. We have deep connections in this town. So having a chance to be there with all of those people, it was kind of a surreal experience, not so much because it was a waypoint to where I was going,
Mhm.
but because the group of people that I'd gotten to know so well, that's that group of 64, there was an understanding, whether I realized it at the time or not, that things were about to change. We were kind of going our separate ways. And
Mhm.
even though it wasn't a group that I was terribly close with for the most part, there was that recognition that, oh, this is a big transition point. Everything's going to be different.
Mhm.
So for me, that's kind of what hit me. I mean, for my parents, obviously, there's pride. I get to walk across the stage, and I did a good thing. They're going to be super excited, clapping, cheering. But the other thing that really sticks out to me about that, and what I remember most, is who wasn't there. My grandfather, he'd been sick for a long time, and
Mhm.
he wasn't able to attend graduation.
Mhm.
Um, so as soon as graduation was over, I ran out. I hopped in the car, cap and gown and all, drove to his house, and I had a chance to sit with him for that time. And that was something I know it meant a lot to me. I know that it meant a lot to him. But having an opportunity to do that, and I think it's more meaningful now looking back because he passed away just a month or two before my college graduation. So that was an opportunity that I had there that I never had at college. So that looking back, it was a very, very important moment, not because of what I'd accomplished in and of itself, but because of what it meant in the bigger picture for me.
Thank you so much for sharing, Eric. I know that's a very touching memory, and so glad you shared with the audience because these are the watershed moments, right? That we encounter and makes a huge difference.
Absolutely.
Um, and after you graduated from high school. What preparation did you do to enter the University of Pittsburgh at Bradford?
Most of what I did in that summer before attending college was financial preparation because we all know when you fill out a FAFSA, there is an expectation of what your family is going to contribute. It used
Oh,
to
for
be the
sure.
EFC, now it's the SAI.
Hmm.
There's an amount that they think, oh, what your family can afford to pay.
Hmm.
We all know that that's not necessarily the case. So even though I had a very supportive family, I knew that that was limited in terms of financial support. There's just some things that can't be done.
Hmm.
So I
Hmm.
spent the summer working and trying to save as much money as I possibly could. Um, and I was fortunate because my grandparents, since I was born, had been putting money in an account that helped to offset some of those costs. It helped me to pay for some of those necessities. I had the honor and the distinction of winning some scholarships that helped to fund a lot of that education, but there was still a lot that had to be paid for. We know that books aren't cheap.
Oh,
Uh,
no, yeah.
I was going to college at a time when laptops were still much more expensive in the grand scheme. They hadn't come down and become so affordable. Chromebooks, and the less expensive options weren't a thing yet.
Yeah, yeah, no,
So
yeah.
those costs, they added up quickly. So I spent most of that time thinking about putting enough money away to be able to get as far as I could. I didn't really think a lot about academic preparation or academic success
Hmm.
because I did well enough in high school. I assumed incorrectly that what I was doing in high school was going to be enough to get me through college, and I was going to be just fine because I was clever and I knew that that was gonna be enough. And
Hmm.
it wasn't. I learned that the hard way in my time through college.
I know we're going to talk a little bit more about your time in college, so I can't wait to hit back to that point of why you felt that way. Um, Talk about the moment you set foot on campus. What was that moment like for you? And yeah, how did you process that?
It was a little bit surreal. One of the schools that I'd applied to and I'd been waitlisted to was Dickinson College.
Mm.
Um, the dorm that I ended up being assigned to was Dickinson House. So there was a little bit
Oh,
of serendipity there.
uh-huh.
But it was a townhouse style living. So they were individual apartments, and when we parked to start unloading, um, it was a little bit nerve wracking. Even though I was only half an hour from home, it was new, it was unique, it was different. Whether I wanted to admit it or not, it was a little bit scary. Um, so we started trying to figure out where I was going, getting things hauled in. The very first time I walked past that section of townhouse apartments, I met some of the folks that would end up being my best friends at college. They lived 3 doors down from me. Um, Hit it off right away. And actually, some of the stuff that was meant for my dorm room never made it there. It ended up in that apartment instead. And I spent a
Oh,
really
interesting.
quite a bit of time in that apartment instead because that became our place to hang out. That's where everybody
Yeah.
gathered up.
Uh-huh.
So it was still certainly an unnerving experience trying to figure out what was going to be next or what I had to do. But having that really good fortune to find good friends right away and having an opportunity to have that interaction I talked about with my mentor and finding my people really helped to anchor me to that place. And it stopped being a conversation of, oh, I'll transfer, and it became, why was I ever going to transfer? This is a
Mm.
place where I fit, I belong.
Yeah.
And I know for a lot of first generation students, that feeling of belonging is pivotal.
Absolutely. Agreed. It's so critical. When you find your campus and it feels like there's a connection there, and yeah, nothing else can compare. I absolutely agree with that. So, did you know what you wanted to major in? And I realize I'm asking this question because you were motivated to be a lawyer. Nothing was going to stop you from becoming a lawyer. So was that the thing that you went into, like pre-law, getting into classes that were going to prepare you for that?
Yeah, so I went into the pre-law program, which was a pre-law designation on a history and political science major, which intuitively made sense to me because I enjoyed history. I certainly wasn't good with names and dates, but I enjoyed the concept of history.
Hmm.
And it made a lot of good sense to me. And then as I was in those classes and I was confronted increasingly with names and dates, and I'm bad at names and dates, I realized this is something that I probably could work really hard and make it, but I don't think I like it well enough to do that. And
Oh, I
I
see.
think that's an important thing to know is that it is okay to do that. I at the time felt like a failure because I wasn't where in this place I belonged. I wasn't in the major that felt right, and I was
Mm.
actively watching things not go well when they should have been going well.
Hmm.
Um, and having that experience, I changed my major multiple times before I really truly found that fit.
Oh,
The
wow.
history political science pre-law track to criminal justice
Hmm.
to an undecided major briefly, and then on to broadcast communications and a specialization in speech communication, which I never would have anticipated in a million years, because in high school I was terrified of public speaking. I hated speaking in
Hmm.
public. This
Hmm.
kind of conversation here couldn't have happened.
Hmm.
And I
Wow.
credit a lot of being able to do that now with the major, certainly. But I had some really fantastic faculty that helped tremendously along that way. Some folks that I really credit with a lot of the success I've had up to this point
Hmm.
because they helped me see that more than anything else, being able to effectively express yourself and get your ideas into the world is one of the most important skill sets that you can have. If you can make yourself heard, you've got a shot to make change.
So I've got to ask this question. It's more like a follow-up, but also works very well. Is what is it about the broadcast communication program that really caught your interest? Because it sounds like you developed as a awesome speaker. You're here in this podcast. You're a leader in the Pennsylvania Trio Association. So you're doing a lot of leadership style that really puts your degree to use. So what was it that finally like you made the jump?
I think part of it was a lot of the coursework that was done was less traditional academia of notes and open written exams and
Mm,
essays and the sort of things that you expect when you think of a traditional college education. It was a
mhm,
lot more practical and a lot more application based, and that really worked well for me as a person. I'm a very I don't know that I'd say hands on, but the doing of the things is the important component to me.
mhm,
That really spoke well when it was group projects or it was don't regurgitate this stuff that came out of the textbook, go into the sound booth and show me that you know how to do a crossfade from one audio track to another on a mock radio broadcast.
mhm,
So being able to do those things really made a big difference for me. But having that designation of that concentration in speech communication and really thinking about how speech or how communication in a verbal format works, that really helped me understand a lot of the human communications process that I think part of why I was so nervous in high school was I didn't fully grasp all of it. And for me, I think that having that information and truly understanding, okay, what is actually happening right now? I don't know why that's a
mhm,
thing that matters to me, but actually understanding the underpinning of communication made a big difference for me. So I think the combination of that topical application based learning and an opportunity to really dive into and improve on an area where I know I was lacking, it really just kind of spoke to me. And it doesn't hurt that it also, in terms of schedule, it made it a lot easier for me to pursue the other passions that I had when I was in college. I was active in the student government. I joked mostly that I wanted to major in student government at one point.
mhm,
But I spent a lot of time doing those extracurriculars, and this was a major that worked well. I could put theory into practice in doing those things, but I also had time to do them.
mm. Okay. What are some highlights of your time at the University of Pittsburgh? So it sounded like you got some opportunities for broadcasting and various other activities. Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of the coursework was application based, whether that be through radio, through TV. We actually, as a capstone project, we put together excuse me, we put together an advertisement for a local company, and we actually, from start to finish, from idea to production, produced that commercial for that company, and that was a really cool experience and opportunity to take a concept from start to finish.
Mhm,
So from an academic standpoint, that was a really fulfilling opportunity and a great opportunity to work closely with other people, again, who are still friends of mine to this day. Um, Academics were an important part of the education for me, but a lot of what I took away from college was related to that outside the classroom learning, those transferable skills or that co-curricular stuff that we talk about. So my time in student government, having an opportunity to really have a laboratory kind of setting where I could practice different things, see what worked and what didn't work, have an opportunity to effect positive change within our community. Um, Having an opportunity to make really close connections with a lot of really talented people that were part of the student government, folks who I'm still friends with to this day. Um, that to me was really deeply formative. And then having the opportunity to be in that close connection with my mentor, who student director of student activities, oversaw the student government and the student programming council. Um, those opportunities to really learn from professionals in the field and watch what they were doing
mhm,
um, made a difference for me. And there are things that my mentor did as a professional that I still carry forward to this day. There are little anecdotes, things that she did in just the day-to-day work in the office that I latched onto and have really become kind of part of my core process too.
that's awesome. What are some challenges and successes you had while at the University of Pittsburgh in Bradford?
Finances had to be the biggest struggle. When you're paying for college largely on your own, there's only so far that you can stretch a dollar. We know that the FAFSA says that there's going to be financial support available from other places, but you're taking out loans. Maybe you get lucky and you find some scholarships, some grant opportunities, but it's largely going to be loans. And even at the end of the day, there's the potential for some unmet need. There's a chance that when all the scholarships, the loans, the grants, everything that they can throw at you is exhausted, you still owe some money. And that happened to
Mhm.
me enough times that I was a pretty consistent fixture in the financial aid office. I was fortunate growing up to have a household where we always had enough, but we had just enough that certain aid was not applicable to us. So there was that kind
Mm.
of donut hole, murky middle. I've heard it called different things, but
Yeah.
you make too much for the help, but you don't make enough to not need the help. So
Ah.
that was certainly a part of that story for me. So thinking about how to cover that funding gap, and I was fortunate. There were opportunities for work study. It actually encouraged me to end up becoming a peer tutor, and having a chance to help others in that way. Um, but it also, in becoming a peer tutor, it really made me come to terms with how I was doing as a student. I always did okay in that first year and a half to 2 years, but I wasn't doing as well as I could have done. I
Hmm.
needed to pay a lot more attention to my studies than I realized, and that opportunity to be a tutor forced me to pay attention to that because I was going to be helping other people to develop study skills. I was going to be helping them understand
Right.
content.
Right.
How am I going to do that if I'm not being a good student? I was a
Mm-hmm.
good enough student to meet the criteria to
Mm-hmm.
be a tutor, but I wasn't being the kind of student that I knew I needed to be. So that really encouraged me to buckle down and put some of the strategies that I knew into practice to be a better student. And really that helped everywhere. I was being a better student. I had an opportunity to be a better student government liaison. I had an opportunity just to be all around a higher caliber student through those opportunities. So there was certainly some good that came out of it.
Absolutely.
But having to confront that I was not as aware of how strong or not strong a student I was, and the challenges related to being a student in college and working your way through having to pay.
Mm-hmm.
Those they kind of go hand in hand. There was some good to it, but there was also some challenge to it.
Absolutely. So this really comes back to the conversation we were having earlier about you said that graduating high school, you didn't really notice that there were certain skills lacking, that going into college was you were just right there in the middle, performing where you needed to be to get by. But it was tutoring that made you realize that you needed to up your level of academic skill. Um, can you talk about like I know it was during tutoring, but was it during a conversation you were having with a student, or just that realization that you needed to be a leveled up student in order to be able to provide the services that you were giving?
It was a little bit of both. There was certainly recognizing that when I applied, the GPA minimum to be a tutor, I just made the minimum, and that was fine. That was enough.
Hmm.
But in looking around at the other tutors that were in there, I was working with peer tutors from different disciplines, and I mean, we had some folks who were engineering and chemistry, and they were brilliant. And hearing how they approached their content and how they approached their topics. Some of it's training. They had a couple years of training and they were really talented tutors. But there was also just kind of undeniably, you are doing college better than I am. You're being a better
Mm.
student.
Mm.
And I don't want to feel like I'm the odd one out here. I'm just kind of faking it when I see what you can do. I want to do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. I'm going to share a quick anecdote with you. And this is my experience with, so I just graduated high school, transitioned right into college. This was with a lot of assistance with the Upward Bound program. And my director, who I can't remember what her degree was in, but I remember her, no, because she helped me register for classes. So she knew I was taking this Psychology 101 class. And me as a student, and I think you might have heard my story on an earlier podcast, was I was very much the underachiever. I wanted to just to be, I want to get by. I just want to just like squeak enough to write. And your story really resonated with me because I was like, I just want to get by. I don't want to like put a ton of effort. Anyway, fast forward, my director, Doris Anaya, shout out to Doris Anaya, she got my midterm grades and she's like, Juan, you have a C in Psychology 101. She's like, I know this class like inside and out. I can help you with this. She sat down with me and I didn't realize like how much non-effort, I don't want to call it non-effort. Maybe I was putting too little effort in the class, and she pushed me to really level up academic skills as well. So I just wanted to, that your story really resonated with me because I was like, yeah, I recall being that underachiever and going, I don't want to put a lot of effort. Like, I'll just get by with a C. A C is fine. And it took that meeting with my mentor, Doris, who was just like, you can do better. You can absolutely do better.
Yeah. And I think that's true of a lot of us. We recognize that you always hear that old adage, C's get degrees. And
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I think for a lot of students who are or who could have been trio students, there's that expectation of good enough is good enough. And one of the
Mm-hmm.
things that I try to bring into practice with our students is yes, good enough is good enough, but I know what you're capable of. I want you to raise the bar, especially when we have
Absolutely.
folks that come in, brand new first year students, and that I want to be a doctor. Okay, I need you to understand from me right now that C's get degrees does not apply to you. You're in a competitive
Yes.
program. You need to shoot
Yes.
for excellence. And I know you can shoot for excellence, and we're going to talk about how to make that happen. And I mean, regardless of what major you're in, I think that's a super important conversation to have. You deserve more than just good enough.
Yes, absolutely. So well said, Eric. I think that's super important for students to know that, right? You're shouldering this responsibility to be in college, but also to be the best version of you and best representation of you to be while you're in college. Such an important point. So while we were talking about
Absolutely.
mentors, and we love this transition to this next question, who were your mentors that provided guidance while you were in college, who kept pushing you and creating opportunities?
Yeah. So really the mentor or when I think of a mentor, the person that comes to mind for me is the person I spoke about, Christina Hansen. Um, she really showed me a lot of what it means to throw your whole being into supporting students. She
Mhm.
was, I mean, phenomenal. I had the opportunity to have a lot of conversations with her about things that were well beyond where I was at as a student. We started talking the summer of my sophomore year. We started talking about big complex student affairs theories and started throwing out things like Chickering's vectors and like, things
Whoa.
that I was not prepared for, but she broke it down in a way that helped me understand why she did what she did and why she made such a commitment to one treating all of us like adults. She
Mhm.
anytime someone would come into
Mhm.
the office and ask about the kids, she'd stop them and correct them. They are not kids, they're students. They're students, they're people, they're adults. And that was very important to her that we are not children, we are adults that are doing what it is that we're doing. Um, so having the opportunities to learn from her in that way and really just seeing her passion for wanting to make a difference with students, that that put me on a whole different trajectory. I mean, she put me on a different trajectory with just that single act of making sure that I put the ticket in the bowl to get picked. But that was really kind of the aha moment where it stopped being law or criminal justice or what have you, and not just kind of floating, not figuring out what I wanted.
Mhm.
Those conversations with her made it clear to me that what I wanted to do was help people, and not just people. I wanted to help students because they were the group that needed that support. They needed that help to get to where they're going and to be who they were going to be. So
Absolutely.
really, when I think of mentors, she is a major influence for me. And there were certainly a lot of other administrators, a lot of other faculty and staff that were important parts of my journey, but no one comes to mind quite as readily as her.
So, Eric, when did you learn about Trio?
So I had at least kind of an understanding that Trio existed
Mhm.
when I was in college because I tutored on the second floor of our library and the Trio offices were across the hallway from us. So I was around Trio all through college. I didn't understand what it was. I just knew there's this office with these people and they do good things for students,
Mhm.
but I don't need that. So I knew of it. I existed around it, but I never really made my way anywhere near enough to it to get hooked.
Mhm.
Um, and it's ironic because after I graduated, I spent some time doing some different odd jobs. I worked temporarily in our admissions department. I floated around a couple of different roles, but one of the folks who was was in the administration on that second floor worked with tutoring, worked with disability resources, also worked with Trio. called me out of the blue and said, "Hey, we are looking for an academic advisor for the TRIO program because the grant is ending. It's a 5-year grant. We're looking for someone temporary to help finish out this year so students are getting support. Would you be interested?"
Mhm.
I'm like, "Yeah, I guess. I don't really know a whole lot about it. I don't know that this is going to be a thing for me, but I don't want to do what I'm doing right now, so I'll do this instead. That sounds kind of cool."
Mhm.
And that was my first introduction into TRIO. I actually got into the role in May of 2015, and the rest is kind of history.
Oh, wow. Right on. So that was your intro to Trio and learning about the services it provides.
Yes, and it's funny. I knew just enough, and then when I got into the role, I knew that it was a good thing. I mean, obviously, if you've been around Trio for more than a minute, you know that it's a good thing that helps people. But
Absolutely.
I still wasn't quite sold at the time. I knew it was good. I didn't know if it was for me.
Yeah.
And what really
Yeah.
changed my trajectory, again, there's a lot of trajectory changing happening. But what really did it for me and what really got me hooked on Trio is having the opportunity to attend the PA Trio conference that first year that I was in the role. The grant had been refunded. I was still working in the program up until they completed interviews. And I had the opportunity to be around professionals who had been in Trio for a while, some who were alumni, some who had been with their programs for many, many years. Hearing folks from not just our state, but also our opening night speaker was from Virginia, and hearing some really, really inspirational talk from them and the folks from COE that came to visit.
Hmm.
That was the moment, or that was the time that really cemented for me. This is bigger than I thought, more important than I thought.
Oh,
I need to do this. This is what I want to do. And that was when I decided to apply for the permanent position. And
wow.
I got I say I got lucky. I'd like to think there was some luck involved to it, but
Yeah.
the folks that I worked with were happy with what I was doing, and I stayed at that program for the remainder of that grant cycle.
All right. Right on. Kind of a sneak peek into how you got into Trio, but I'm curious, was this the original career trajectory, or did you have a different career in mind?
My original plans, well, the third iteration of the original plans, uh, were related to student affairs. I wanted to do student services in some way.
Hmm.
That influence from my mentor really kind of hung on, and I realized that's how I'm going to do this. I want to work in student services in some way. Trio was not necessarily the plan. My plan had been after graduation, go on and get my master's degree, look for a really reputable student affairs program. I had applied. I'd already gone through most of the process to getting applied and accepted.
Hmm.
And then just a couple months before graduation, with my grandfather passing away, that really kind of
Yeah.
set me back and hit me hard. And I decided at that time what I needed was to spend time home with family. I needed some time to kind of sit and recenter. Didn't change what my aspirations were, but it changed how I needed to go about it because I needed to be around family. Um,
Absolutely.
and as we know about folks who graduate and then decide they're going to take a gap year or they're going to pause, in many instances, it's very, very tough to get back. And it took me up until 2019 to really commit to moving forward and then ending up getting that master's degree
Mm.
program process started
Mhm.
again. And by that point, I was deeply embedded in Trio, and I wasn't planning on leaving it.
Yeah. Wow. And you're super right about taking the gap year before, like after college graduation, and you're like, I really want to go for that master's. I really want to go for that more advanced degree. I think my break was about 6 years before I decided to pursue a master's, and it was so tough trying to get back into that rhythm. Did you find kind of a similar thing about finding a rhythm to education again, or to trying to be a student?
Oh yes, and I mean the amount of choreography, I'll call it, that
Mm,
I
that's a
had
good
to
word.
do to make sure that what I was doing was correct. Because I mean, working in a Trio program with college students all day, every day, I
Hmm.
know the things that you need to do to be a strong student.
Mm-hmm.
They still apply at a graduate level, even if you're talking to bachelor's degree seeking students. It's still the same stuff that applies. There's a big difference between knowing what to do and telling someone else what to do, and being able to put it in practice for yourself. So there was a little bit of a learning curve to get back to it. It really required me to very, very carefully plan out how everything happened. And for the longest time, I had really kind of a rigid schedule, which is something I don't personally like.
Mm.
Mondays were for reading, Tuesdays were for drafting, Wednesdays were for discussion
Oh my
boards.
gosh.
Thursdays I took off because my group of close folks that I worked with, that was self-care day. We went and we did trivia and we had a fun night. And then
Yeah.
Friday, Saturday back to it.
Wow.
Um, Specifically an accelerated program, I took one class at a time, but one class would end on a Sunday, the next one would start on a Monday, straight through. The only break we had was the holiday break for Christmas over the winter, and I think we had a week or two. But other than that, it was straight through the entire time. No summers off, no nothing. So
My
it
gosh.
was intensive, but it
Yeah.
gave me a lot of empathy. Not that I didn't have it before, but
Right.
it really reminded me to be incredibly kind and understanding to the students that we're working with, because they're finding their way the same way, and they may not be having as easy a time figuring out what's working for them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to go back to your time as an advisor for the TRIO SSS program at the University of Pittsburgh. Can you talk about that experience and what did that experience teach you and what did it mean to you?
Absolutely. When I first got into the position, I was unsure. I was not really sold on what the program was. Like I said, I knew this is a grant. It helps students. It helps students of very specific categories. You're going to do all sorts of things with them, and it's never going to be quite the same thing twice. You're going to give them whatever they need because that's what you do. Okay, great, but what does that actually mean? And then as I got to know those students, the folks that were already there, students that were already being served in the program when I got there, I
Mhm.
got to understand some of what they'd already been receiving, so I could kind of understand what they were hoping to get from me. And then once the grant was refunded and we got into the new year, and I was assigned my first group of students that were purely mine, they hadn't had an advisor before me. That's when I really started to understand, oh, I remember what it was like to be right here and to have these questions, or to be here and to not have questions. But really, I do have questions and I just don't want to ask them because I don't want to be seen needing help, or I don't want to have to ask for something because at that point I'm going to feel like I don't deserve to be here. There's a lot of those feelings with first generation students that if I can't make it on my own, I'm not really making it. And we know that's not true, but it doesn't change how we feel. So really at that point it was one of the first aha moments. It wasn't the moment, but
Mhm.
it really kind of pulled back the curtain on this is why it matters. This is what we're doing does for students. It's a lifeline for many of them to make sure that they're okay. And for some of them, it is the super basics that they need brushing up on because they didn't have the greatest of high school experiences. For some of them, they're coming in and they're ready to go, and they get their first exam back that didn't go as planned, and they start to fall apart. And we have to work on building some resiliency, or working on helping them overcome that obstacle and those challenges and those self-doubt feelings that they're having. Um, so getting involved in the program at that point, it was it brought up a lot of feelings for me that I didn't realize at the time. I recognized a lot of these things in myself, and that's where I knew, even if it wasn't the moment where I knew it was going to be trio forever,
Mhm.
it was the moment that I knew someone has to do this. It might as well be me because it is important work.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I wanted the audience to hear about your experience as an advisor, but also have them hear about that you went to graduate school. Uh, that must have kept you really, really busy. How did you find time to, you shared a little bit about how you balanced your time, but gosh, that must have really kept you busy from end to end.
It did, and I mean, I am grateful for having the opportunity to do it. I'm grateful that it's over. But it was. I mean, from start to finish, I'd wake up in the morning, I'd get to work, I'd work through, and most of the time, we were done for the day at 5 o'clock. I would stay in the office for at least another hour and a half because that was a place I knew that I could
Whoa.
focus with no interruptions.
Mm,
A lot of times when there was a major deadline coming, I wouldn't go back to my place because I knew there were distractions. There are enough things that could get in the way that I wasn't willing to take that risk because the time that I had was precious. I didn't have time to waste on not being able to get it right and being efficient about it. So I would spend a lot of time in my office, and at the time we had a student lounge or a student lab right down the hallway from me. So I'd be in the office and I'd see a lot of our students walking by, and they'd stop and they'd wave and just, what are you doing? I'm studying. Oh, you're studying too? Yeah, I'm studying too. Um, so there was a lot of that, a lot of evenings, a lot of
Yeah.
really, really hard pushes, a lot of stopping and asking periodically, do I really want to do this badly? Um,
Hmm.
and I mean, the coursework was really good. It was fascinating. I had really talented instructors. I had great folks that I was working alongside in our cohort, um, and I learned a lot from it. But I think what I learned most from it was the practical application of those things is more important than any theory or any laboratory style experimentation or anything like that you're going to do. Being able to take these tools out into the world and make use of them was going to be super, super important. And ironically, my very last class during this graduate program was healthcare communication. And I took healthcare communication starting January of 2020. So having a faculty member who worked for the CDC explain to us in real time what was about to
Oh
happen or what she
man.
thought they were going to do next in terms of public messaging and
Yeah.
just watching the response unfold. I'm not going to say it was a good time because it wasn't, but it was a very, very informative time. And it really
Mm.
drove home all the things that we were learning in these places go straight out into the world. We're not learning theory. We're learning practical application, and you're going to get a chance to do it sooner
Wow.
rather than later. Um, so it was a great experience, and it was a bad experience. It was frustrating. It was maddening. I learned a lot from it. I'm glad that I'm done, and I know full well that I'm about to start something like it just over again with this EDD program. But it was
Yes.
a very rewarding experience overall. I'm grateful to have broadened my skill set that way.
Now that I have you at this moment, and likely with Trio students listening, can you talk about balancing your work and grad school and how your schoolwork related to your job? Yeah, can you give us just like a an example of how you balance all of that? Because I know for a lot of listeners, they're curious, like, if I want to do that, how do I balance it?
Yeah, and it's anybody who is a trio student, trio staff. We all know that when we have multiple different responsibilities, it's tough. I mean, and I talk about this with students all the time. You are not just a student. You are a child to parents. You are a friend to your friends. You are a partner to someone. You have all of these different folks and these different responsibilities that are demanding your attention, and it gets heavy. It really does.
For
Personal
sure.
responsibilities, professional responsibilities, all of these things, it can get incredibly difficult to manage that. So a couple of the things that really were super important to me and that I'd recommend to anybody thinking about furthering their education or just trying to keep themselves balanced. First and foremost, get yourself organized. And I don't mean go buy a planner and put everything into it. Maybe find the thing that works for you.
Hmm.
I am not a paper planner person. Some of the
Hmm.
students I've worked with,
Hmm.
they are paper planner people.
Hmm.
If that's your thing, go for it. But don't try to force yourself into an organizational method that is right for everybody else. Find what's right for you, because managing all of these different things you have to do is much, much easier when you can lay them out and see what's going on. So keeping yourself organized, holding yourself accountable. We know that there are deadlines that we face every day, whether that be something professionally, whether that be a homework assignment that's due, whether there's a major consequence like it's going to tank your grade or you're going
Hmm.
to lose a job, or it's a
Hmm.
less major consequence or something that's not as apparent because it's going to have impact down the line. Managing those deadlines and holding yourself accountable to meeting them is going to be super important. And sometimes the only person making you make a deadline is going to be you. So practicing that accountability, holding yourself accountable to what you said you were going to do. It is a difficult skill, but it's a super, super important skill to master. Um, I can't stress that enough. If you don't practice those things now in your middle school, high school, college careers, it's going to be much, much harder to put that into practice when the consequences are bigger. So
Absolutely.
practicing that, holding yourself to those deadlines. If you are someone who has difficulty with procrastination, think about the strategies that will help you with that. For me, a really good tool has always been an artificial deadline. If I know something's due on Friday, no, it's not. It's due on Wednesday. So if I slip up, I still have some room to fix it, and I know that I need to do better in the future. So I've built myself kind of a backstop to make sure that I'm okay, even
Hmm.
if I slip up. Um, so I mean, accountability, organization. The other thing that I think we talk about, but I'm going to generalize, most of us are kind of bad at doing is taking time for self-care.
Oh, yes.
You can
Yes.
be organized and accountable and busy and all of these things happening, but if you don't take time to take care of yourself, you're going to burn yourself out. You cannot go forever. And sometimes it's something like get enough sleep. Sometimes it's drink something other than a Coke.
Mm.
Sometimes it's eat a vegetable. There's
Absolutely.
I mean, so there's physical self-care in terms of making sure that you are getting what you need to be physically okay, but it's also mental self-care. When
Hmm.
all of these things are on your mind and on your plate, it gets heavy and that weighs on
It
you.
does.
So finding the things that bring you some joy, whether that be I'm gonna binge a couple episodes of my guilty pleasure Netflix show, or I'm gonna go for a walk, I'm gonna go to the gym, I'm gonna go hang out with friends. That those moments of self-care are going to sometimes feel like they shouldn't be happening. You'll feel some guilt sometimes about taking time for yourself when there's things to do, but the alternative is your body's going to make you do it some other time, and it's not going to be a convenient time. It's not going to be an
Mm.
easy time.
Hmm.
It is so important to do that. So yes, in terms of balance, for me, what was super important and what I'd recommend to anybody, keep yourself organized, keep yourself accountable, take care of yourself.
Absolutely. Great advice. You now serve as the director for the TRIO Student Support Services program at Westminster College in Pennsylvania. Can you talk about the career path you took to get to this point? Because you served as an advisor, sounds like you really connected with the TRIO programs, and now you're here. Now you're the director. You're the one calling the shots. Talk to us
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah, I like I said, I've had a love for the trio programs for a good many years now. When I was wrapping up that last grant cycle, as we got into 2020 and all of the things that happened started happening, I had decided a while back that I wanted to try to make a change. Not that I wanted to leave trio,
Hmm.
but I'd always said I want to be somewhere different by the time I turn 30. I want to make sure that I'm somewhere new. Um, what I hadn't known at the time that I said that was I would have met my fiance, and over the course of that year, we had gotten to be close, and started making decisions about where we wanted to be in the big picture as well. So
Hmm. Hmm.
at the end of that at the end of that year, I had been having some conversations with my program manager and said, I think I'm gonna be done at the end of this grant year, and I'm gonna go find my way somewhere else. Um, Cue COVID, everyone locks down, everyone starts working remotely or doing what it is they're doing. I made my way out east and still worked remotely for our program, still did the work that we were doing. Um, but we found ourselves in Philadelphia, where my fiance was finishing up her master's program,
Hmm.
and we kind of collectively decided this is not quite the right place either, especially if something like this happens again.
Hmm.
We were safe, we were comfortable, we were okay, but it wasn't quite the right place. So we had decided over the summer we're going to start applying for jobs back out west. We're going to be look at Pittsburgh, and the first one of us to get a job is going to go.
Hmm.
And lo and behold, I get a call from the Job Corps program in Pittsburgh, which another program that I feel very strongly about. It's a companion program to ours that came about during LBJ's War on Poverty and the Great Society projects. Had an opportunity to work with them during COVID. Um, so we made our way out there, and I have a lot of love for Job Corps, but it wasn't quite right. It's helping a lot of the same students. It's doing a lot of great things, but it wasn't Trio, and I knew this still wasn't quite it. So when the slate of grants for this latest competition came out, and I saw, oh, this college not far from us got a program award. They're looking for a director. I called up my program manager and said, hey, this came up. Do you think I could do it? And she said, you absolutely can do this. You should apply. You have to apply. Um, because I had a fantastic program manager. She was very inclusive in decision making. I learned a lot of what I know now from her. I knew things that I not that I shouldn't have known. I knew things that not every advisor would get a chance to know, depending on how the director operated.
Right.
So I knew a lot of the things that I needed to know. So just on a whim, hoping that fortune was going to take me back to Trio, I applied, and they took me into the program, and I walked into Westminster's campus early in January. There was a desk, there was a copy of the grant, and there was nothing else. And they said, build a program. And I said, okay. And here we are. The rest is history.
Wow. Wow. And you're doing amazing work out there. And great not only work, but representation of helping first generation limited income students really achieve and transition into college. So you're doing awesome, fantastic work out there. What are some highlights about your current role and what do you enjoy the most?
Well, I have to say we have a program here that I'm very, very proud of. And as much as I'd love to take all the credit for it, no, I can't. I have an incredibly, incredibly talented team here. My team is fantastic, and most of the work that I do on a day-to-day basis is really trying to clear the field for them to do the work with students that they do. A lot of what I do on a day-to-day is budget, is paperwork, is compliance work, is making sure that we are doing what we're supposed to do in the way we're supposed to do it, because we all know that TRIO programs have a lot of accountability no matter what anyone else will tell you.
100%, Eric,
Uh,
100%. Very
so there's
rigorous.
a lot of that. As much as I enjoy the work with the students, I don't get to do quite as much of it as I used to. So a lot of what I'm doing is making sure that my team is empowered to do what it is that they do so very well. I do have a couple students that I see. I have a limited caseload that work specifically with me, but
Mhm.
a lot of the interaction I get to have with them is when we do a cultural and educational trip, I'll tag along as a chaperone, or when we do different workshops, I'll be a part of that. So I still get to see them. I still get to be around them. And
Yeah,
we
yeah,
have a pretty centrally located consolidated office here on campus. So I get to see them all the time. It's a small campus that you can't be on this campus and not see each other. Um, so I do get a chance to see a lot of our students, but it is very, very different than what being an advisor was. I do miss that
oh,
day-to-day
absolutely.
interaction that I used to have with students
Yeah.
that way.
Mhm.
But there's also something very, very gratifying about what I get to do now. I get to do the big picture thinking that I did in some capacity before, but now I get to think what this decision we make now impacts in 5 years. What is this change we're going to make due to our graduation rates in a couple of years? Is this going to be better for us, worse for us? Is this going to help students or hurt students? So not just looking at data and making informed decisions, but also deep think, I guess. I don't know
Uh,
exactly what to call it, but doing the
yeah,
doing the big picture brainstorming and kind of imagining what comes next. And that's kind of a cool thing to do, to have an opportunity to think about what it could be and figure out how to get us there.
absolutely.
Um, so it's very different, but it's very, very gratifying.
I love hearing that you're, even as a director, that you're still involved, that you still take time to go to the chaperoned events where you're being the chaperone and you want to still. I love that. I just wanted to kind of put that out that being an active director to still have face time with students a little bit, even though your caseload is limited, to still see that's amazing.
Well, and we're an all
Um,
hands on deck kind of program. I don't. Our goal has always been someone in Trio is available. If you need something, I want you to come and see us. If you typically work with this advisor and they're not available because they're meeting with a student or they're out for the day, go talk to the other advisor. Come talk to me. You should never have a circumstance where you cannot get the help you need walking into the Trio office. So having the interaction that way is certainly important. But for me, I also as part of our evaluation process, every application that comes through this program, my assistant director looks at and I look at. So whether I've
Mm,
met you or not,
wow.
every student who comes through our program, I know because I've gotten a chance to see the paperwork. I've seen the needs assessment, the applications. If I don't know you, the person, I at least have a good understanding of where you're at. And then I get to put that together when I have an opportunity to go out and see people. So no, that's very important to me. I can't imagine a circumstance where I would willingly be a hands-off director because that puts me a step further away from the students we serve, and I can't do that.
Gotcha. Gotcha. What do you see yourself doing 5 to 10 years from now? I mean, are you still going to be trio? You're still going to be here? Yeah. What does your future hold?
I'll be here. I'll be here. Um, I joke. It's a joke, but it's also not. I say I'll be here until I'm fired or retired.
I love
I
that.
I have because this program got its start while I was here. I don't want to call it my program because it's bigger than that. But
Mm-hmm.
I feel a lot of personal connection and a lot of pride in this program because it is how it was. We designed the program to work within the confines of the grant proposal the way that we thought it was best. So I feel a very personal connection to this program and the work we're doing. Um, I don't intend on going anywhere anytime soon. I'll be here until I can't be anymore. Now, in terms of the bigger picture, I'm certainly going to be looking forward to finishing my term as past president and stepping away from having to plan conferences. But I'm certainly looking for ways to stay involved and to serve in some capacity because I'm a big advocate in servant leadership and giving back to our trio community because that helps keep us strong. And I'm certainly thinking about in the big picture having opportunities to contribute to our regional association as well. I love our extended MEOP family, and any chance that I have to get involved there, I'd certainly take that opportunity as well.
Wonderful. If you had all trio professionals in one room, they're from Upward Bound, Veterans Upward Bound, Student Support Services, every trio program you could think of. If you had them all in one room, what is some advice you would share with them?
Whew, there's a lot that's going on in the world right now. There's a lot of things that we're contending with. There's a lot for us to look at and be worried about. There are things that we look at, and even when we win, it feels like we're fighting an uphill battle, or it feels like it's too much. Um, don't give up. Do not give up on what we're doing and keep fighting for it, because the work that we do is entirely too important. The students that we serve are too important. They need us now more than they've ever needed us. And it's not just the immediate fight. It's the bigger picture as well.
Mhm.
For many of us, we've heard stories from either Dr. Mitchum, Maureen, someone who's been around since the early days. We hear the stories of the 12-day war. We hear the stories of the war on opportunity. I wouldn't presume that we're going to be spoken of the same way, but the work that we're doing here is going to be talked about years from now in the history of Trio because one, we're going to win. And
Mhm.
two, what we do now is going to shape the future of Trio programs. We're going to defend our programs because that's what we know how to do, and the work we do is too good to stop. So that's what I would say. Do not quit. Don't give up. Keep fighting.
What advice do you have for trio participants, whether they're pre-college, in college, or thinking about going to college?
Accept help. It's very, very easy, and especially with a lot of the students that we serve, it's easy to let pride get in the way or to have these feelings that if I take help or if I let someone help me do it, if I don't do it on my own, that I didn't earn it or I don't deserve my spot or my role in this place. That's nonsense. I am here to tell you that you belong in these spaces. You deserve the help that is available out there for you. And there are so many people who want to see you succeed. I mean, thousands and thousands of professionals, not just trio professionals, but everywhere on your college campuses, in your high schools, wherever you are, there are people that want to see you succeed, and they will give you all the tools that they can possibly put in your hands. You just have to say yes and take it. So don't let pride make you struggle more than you have to. There's nothing noble about struggling harder than you had to make a point. Let us help you be the person that you're going to be.
That is fantastic advice. I love that. What is something that you're currently watching, reading, or listening to?
So besides Let's Talk Trio,
Thank you.
I'm a big podcast fan, and I'm also kind of a horror junkie or a lover of spooky stuff.
Ooh.
So two podcasts that are in pretty regular rotation right now. A show called We're Alive, which is an audio drama post-zombie apocalypse. How is the world rebuilding? Fantastic. Definitely recommend it.
Okay.
And then also Old Gods of Appalachia, which is a lot of the old Appalachian folklore kind of retold in a new way.
Whoa.
In these different ways. It's an anthology series. If you're into spooky and you're into podcasts, highly recommend them both.
I love that. Thank you for that recommendation.
Yeah.
Using only one word, describe yourself.
So I'm going to describe myself in one word, and I'm going to explain it why, because I don't know how to.
Absolutely. Yes. Go for it.
So my team are all Clifton Strengths practitioners, and there are 34 different themes. And one of the themes that shows up for me is connectedness. And it's connectedness both for me in terms of ideas and information, but also in community in terms of being relational to people. So for me, connected is a word that really comes up over and over again.
Wow. And to kind of stick on this, the word connected, it feels like connection is really super important to the work that you do.
Absolutely. I mean, Trio is a relational thing, whether it's helping students. If we don't help them feel comfortable with us, if we don't build a connection with them, why are they going to listen to us? When it comes to doing the advocacy work we do, if we're not connecting with the people who can make change, why are they going to help us? Everything that we do related to Trio in one way or another is connected, is relational and is connected.
Absolutely. Erik, thank you so much for giving us your time this evening. I gotta point this out because our audience didn't see this happening. We met while the sun was still out on your end in Pennsylvania, and it had slowly transitioned to dark. So thank you. I know we have a 2-hour difference. We stayed pretty late to do this. So thank you for being on this podcast. Thank you for sharing your incredible journey. And Trio is super fortunate to have you as a strong advocate.
Thank you. It's my absolute pleasure. Any opportunity that I have to be a part of the cause and to help what we're doing get out there is fantastic. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We have a tradition on the Let's Talk Trio podcast where we have the guests sign off. Can we have you do the honors?
Happy to. Hi, this is Erik Austin, graduate of the University of Pittsburgh at Bradford and Purdue University. I'm a first-generation college student and the director of the Trio Student Support Services program at Westminster College. Keep advocating, keep the faith, and remember, Trio works.
Are you a participant, alum, or staff of a Trio program? Do you want your program highlighted? You or your program could be featured in an upcoming episode of Let's Talk Trio. Get a hold of us by going to our Facebook page or Instagram and send us a direct message. Search for Let's Talk Trio. We want to get your story to the public.
You just heard from our guest, Erik Austin, Director of the Trio Student Support Services Program at Westminster College in Pennsylvania and past President of the Pennsylvania Association of Trio Programs. Thank you, Erik, for being on the podcast and for sharing your Trio journey. Remember, if you would like to be on the Let's Talk Trio podcast or know a staff, advocate, participant, or alumni, send us an email at letstalktrio@gmail.com. That email again is letstalktrio@gmail.com. A heartfelt thanks to our individual supporters: Angelica Villalpando, Dr. Jamie Motley, Dr. Ryan Barone, Dr. Jeff Napudi, Angelica Valdez, Rosario Riley, Felicia Rivera, Eric Lemaster, Jeff Calden, and Jaded Electronics. Thank you to our corporate sponsors: TrioJoblist.com, Nosotros Education Center, Longsdale Publishing, Student Access, and The Trio Store, powered by Proforma. Visit www.thetriostore.com, your source for Trio graduation stoles. Thank you all so much for your continued support of this podcast. You too can sponsor the Let's Talk Trio podcast in one of 3 ways. Become a monthly patron on Patreon. Our base level starts at $1 a month. Become a corporate sponsor by placing an ad on the podcast. Contact us for details. Become a supporter with a one-time donation to the podcast business PayPal account. Our business handle is @Let'sTalkTrio. I'd like to take a moment to thank our honorary members of the Let's Talk Trio podcast, Roderick Chambers, Tony Ho, Scott Kendall, and Susan Cramp. The Let's Talk Trio podcast team is John Russell, audio engineer, music producer and composer, and post-production editor. Amelia Castañeda, script supervisor, marketing manager, social media manager, and producer. Juan Rivas, executive producer and host. Be sure to follow the Let's Talk Trio podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. This episode was recorded Tuesday, June 17th, 2025. Thank you all so much for listening, and we will catch you on the next episode.